The cold metal shackles locked around Daniel Cross's wrists, heavy and unyielding. He sat in the center of a dimly lit chamber, the air thick with the scent of oil and burning metal. Alien figures surrounded him, tall, armored beings with thick, ridged skin and glowing red eyes. The Krell Dominion, warlords of 1,000 conquered worlds. One of them stepped forward. General Vorsk, larger than the others, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You are a prisoner of the Krell Dominion. Speak human. How many of your kind remain hidden?" Daniel did not answer. His eyes flicked across the room, observing. Thick steel walls, no windows, only one door, guarded by 2 soldiers gripping plasma rifles. Above him, a single camera blinked red. Watching, recording. Vorsk took another step forward. "You are weak. You have no weapons. You are alone. There is no escape. Speak or you will suffer." Daniel exhaled slowly, almost as if bored. He tilted his head, meeting the general's gaze. "You think chains can hold me?" The guards shifted, gripping their weapons tighter. Vorsk bared his teeth. "Enough?" He nodded to one of the Krell officers. A switch was pressed, and the walls around Daniel came alive with energy. A containment field designed to keep the most dangerous prisoners locked in place. The air crackled, the force field shimmered, and yet Daniel remained calm. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," he said, his voice quiet, almost amused. Vorsk growled, stepping closer. "I understand that you are just a man, and men break." He raised a thick hand and motioned to the guards. "Break him." The first blow came fast, but Daniel didn't flinch. A heavy fist crashed into his ribs, but he barely reacted. Another guard grabbed his shoulder, forcing him forward, but his feet stayed planted. Then something changed. The lights flickered, just for a second, barely noticeable. Then a deep hum vibrated through the walls, like the station itself had exhaled. The guard hesitated, his grip loosened. Daniel smiled. "You feel that?" A second later, the entire chamber shuddered. The force field around Daniel flickered and vanished. The overhead lights dimmed. The security monitors glitched. The Krell soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Vorsk's deep voice cut through the tension. "Malfunction. The station is old. Continue." But then the first guard gasped, stumbling backward. He clutched his helmet as if something unseen had struck him. Another guard did the same, his weapon slipping from his fingers. Vorsk's eyes narrowed. "What?" A low whisper filled the room. Not a sound, not a voice, but a presence. The air grew heavier, like the walls themselves were closing in. The guards began to shake. One of them dropped to his knees, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Daniel remained seated, completely still. His shackles rattled. Then, without warning, they snapped open and fell to the floor with a dull clang. Vorsk's rage flared. "What trick is this?" Daniel slowly stood, rolling his shoulders as if stretching after a long rest. He looked at the Krell warlord, his eyes calm, his expression unreadable. "You think I needed chains to be a prisoner?" He took a step forward. The remaining guards raised their weapons, but their hands trembled. One of them screamed, his eyes wide with terror. He fired his plasma rifle, but the bolt never reached its target. The energy dissipated midair like it had been swallowed by something unseen. Vorsk's breath caught. Impossible. Daniel took another step. The whisper in the air grew louder, like 1,000 voices murmuring in unison. The Krell soldiers collapsed one by one, clutching their heads. Their bodies twitched, their eyes rolled back. Vorsk stood frozen, watching his warriors crumble. He had fought countless battles, crushed rebellions, wiped entire species from history. Never had he felt fear. Until now. Daniel looked up at the security camera, his gaze piercing through the screen. "I think it's time for me to leave." The camera feed cut to static. The chamber doors hissed open on their own, and Daniel walked out. The emergency alarms blared through the Krell warship, a deep, warbling sound that sent every soldier into high alert. Security doors slammed shut, locking down the lower levels where the human had been held. Armed warriors flooded the hallways, their plasma rifles primed, their eyes scanning for the escapee. General Vorsk stood in the command chamber, staring at the security screens in disbelief. The human should not have been able to escape. He had been locked in chains, surrounded by elite warriors, held inside an energy field, and yet the cameras now showed empty halls and unconscious guards. How did he do this? Vorsk growled, his claws digging into the metal table. How did a single unarmed human break out? One of his officers, a younger Krell with nervous eyes, hesitated before answering. We don't know. There was no physical breach. No weapons were used, the security logs show. He stopped, staring at the screen. Vorsk followed his gaze. The security feed flickered, lines of static cutting across the image. Then, without warning, the screens went dark. Every single one. A sharp chill ran down Vorsk's spine. Find him, now. In the corridors below, Daniel Cross walked calmly through the ship, his footsteps light, his breathing steady. Soldiers rushed past intersections ahead of him, their heavy boots thudding against the floor, their weapons scanning the empty halls. They couldn't see him, not because he was invisible, but because their minds refused to register his presence. He had learned long ago that the strongest weapon was not a gun or a blade, it was the mind, and his had been sharpened to perfection. He reached an intersection and turned left, heading toward the central control hub. Every Krell officer on the ship was searching for him, but they were looking in the wrong places. Their minds were clouded, missiled by whispers, shadows, and false signals. A group of guards stood at the next checkpoint, blocking the path. Daniel stopped, watching them. One of them suddenly tensed, his breathing hitched. He turned to his squad mates, his voice uneasy. "Did you hear that?" The others frowned. "Hear what?" The first guard's grip on his rifle tightened. A voice. It said. He froze, his eyes darting around. His chest rose and fell in quick, panicked breaths. Daniel stepped forward, silent as a ghost. The guard's eyes widened in sudden terror, his hands shaking. No, I won't listen." He stumbled backward, his weapon slipping from his grasp. His squad mates turned toward him, confused. "What's wrong with you?" The soldier's breathing turned ragged. His eyes darted around wildly, as if seeing something no one else could. "He's here," he screamed. "He's inside my head." Before the others could react, the panicked soldier turned and ran. The squad watched him disappear down the corridor, his screams fading into the distance. Daniel walked past them. None of them moved. None of them even looked at him. Their minds refused to acknowledge his presence, even as he passed just inches away. Vorsk's command chamber was in chaos. Officers shouted over one another, struggling to make sense of the situation. Sensors picked up no intruder. Motion detectors saw nothing, and yet reports came in of soldiers collapsing, screaming about something being inside their heads. "This is a trick," one officer growled. "Some kind of human technology." Vorsk wasn't so sure. His instincts screamed that this was something else, something worse. A sudden chill swept through the chamber. The lights flickered. For a brief moment, every screen flashed the same image, a human face, calm, watching. Daniel's voice echoed through the ship's speakers, smooth and steady. "You should have left me alone." Then the power died. Darkness swallowed the room. The only sounds were the rapid breathing of Krell officers and the distant hum of the ship's failing systems. Vorsk's claws tightened into fists. "You cannot hide forever, human." His voice was steady, but even he could feel the weight pressing down on the room, the invisible presence tightening around them. A whisper brushed against his mind, so soft he almost thought he imagined it. "I'm not the one who's hiding." A sudden scream echoed from the hallway outside, then another. The officers inside the command chamber turned toward the door, their bodies rigid with fear. Vorsk reached for his communicator, his voice a low growl. "Seal every level. Do not let him reach the bridge." But deep down he knew it was already too late. The warship trembled as if something unseen was crawling through its walls. Soldiers ran through the dim corridors, their rifles raised, their eyes darting in every direction. They were trained for war, for bloodshed, for the brutal strength of battle. But this was different. No alarms had been triggered, no enemy had been sighted, and yet something was here. General Vorsk stood at the heart of the command center, his fists clenched. His soldiers, his strongest warriors, had fallen without a fight. They clutched their heads, screaming in terror, their minds unraveling from forces they could not understand. He had summoned the Krell's most powerful telepaths to face the human, to crush his mind and end this nightmare. And yet, now they were screaming. Inside a sealed chamber, 3 of the Krell's elite psionic warriors surrounded Daniel Cross. Their scaled foreheads were slick with sweat as they strained against the force pushing back at them. Their minds, trained to break the wills of lesser beings, were locked in battle. But Daniel stood calm, unmoved. "You're inside my mind," one of the telepaths gasped. No, that's not possible." Daniel tilted his head. "Isn't it?" The walls of their consciousness bent. Reality shifted. The telepaths found themselves no longer standing in the ship's chamber, but somewhere else, somewhere dark. Their own memories played against them, their fears twisted into something real. The cold grip of something wrapped around them, whispering truths they had buried long ago. One fell to his knees. His breathing came in panicked gasps. "Pull back," one of the others shouted, sweat dripping from his brow. "We have to." A sharp cry cut through the air. One of them collapsed, his eyes wide, unseeing. The second followed, his body shuddering before going still. The last telepath staggered back, shaking. His voice trembled. "What are you?" Daniel took a slow step forward. "Your mistake was thinking I needed weapons." The telepath let out a strangled gasp before his mind shattered. He collapsed, motionless. The chamber doors hissed open. Vorsk and his remaining guards stood at the threshold, weapons raised, but they did not fire. "Not yet." The general's deep voice rumbled through the room. "You have power, human, but it will not save you." Daniel met his gaze. "You still don't understand, do you?" A shadow passed over the control panels. The ship's lights flickered. The whispers in the air grew louder, like voices just out of reach. And then the Krell soldiers started dropping to their knees, clutching their heads. Vorsk felt it, a presence wrapping around him. Cold, invisible fingers pressing into his mind. He fought it, gritting his teeth. His body tensed with resistance. Daniel exhaled slowly. "You should have left me alone." Vorsk's vision blurred. The ship seemed to tilt beneath his feet. And as he fought to stay standing, he realized that the truth. He was not the hunter. He was the prey. The warship drifted in the void, silent except for the faint hum of failing systems. The Krell had fallen, not from weapons, not from battle, but from something far worse, something they could not see, could not fight. Their minds had turned against them. Their greatest strength had become their undoing. General Vorsk stumbled through the empty corridors, his breath ragged. His warriors, his elite soldiers, lay motionless around him. Some twitched, whispering nonsense. Others stared blankly at the ceiling, their minds shattered beyond repair. The strongest among them had tried to fight, but how could they fight something that existed within them? Vorsk pressed a clawed hand to his head, forcing himself to focus. He had survived wars, assassinations, and mutinies. He would survive this. He had to. A voice echoed through the ship's speakers, smooth, calm, unshaken. "You thought I was unarmed?" Vorsk's claws dug into his palm. The human was still here, moving unseen, striking without lifting a finger. With a snarl, he activated his communicator. "All remaining forces converge on the bridge. We end this now. The signal crackled. No response. Then another voice, faint, broken, whispered through the line. "They're gone?" Vorsk froze. The voice belonged to one of his officers, but there was something wrong with it. Something hollow. "Gone where?" Vorsk growled. The line went silent. Then soft, ragged laughter. A cold shiver ran through the general's spine. He moved faster, his heavy boots thudding against the metal floor. He had to reach the bridge, had to take control before. The lights flickered. The walls seemed to close in. The whispering started again, just behind him. Vorsk whirled around, plasma rifle raised. Nothing, just the empty corridor. But the air felt *. Then he saw it. A shadow, standing at the far end of the hallway. No movement, no sound, just watching. Vorsk aimed, finger tightening on the trigger. "Show yourself." The shadow didn't move. And then it spoke. "You were never in control." The voice wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It was calm, steady, certain. Vorsk fired, a direct hit. The plasma blast tore through the air and passed right through the figure. No impact, no damage, just emptiness. The shadow didn't flinch. Then, before Vorsk could react, it was gone. The whispering grew louder, crawling into his skull. His vision swam. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He staggered back, gasping. His grip on the rifle loosened. This wasn't a battle. It never had been. It was a nightmare, and he was trapped inside it. Vorsk stumbled into the bridge, his breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. The doors hissed shut behind him, sealing off the darkness that seemed to be swallowing the rest of the ship. He braced himself against the control panel, his claws digging into the metal. His warriors were gone. His telepaths had failed. And now he was alone. The whispering had followed him. It was everywhere, crawling through the walls, pressing into his thoughts. It was not a voice, not words, but a presence, heavy, unrelenting. He slammed a fist against the console, forcing himself to focus. "Computer, activate emergency override. Lock down all decks now." No response. The screens flickered. Systems failed one by one. The ship was no longer his. It belonged to something else now. A shadow moved at the edge of his vision. Vorsk spun, rifle raised, but there was nothing there, only the hum of dying machinery. Then a voice. "You've already lost." It was him, the human. Vorsk's muscles tensed. "Show yourself." A pause, then footsteps. Slow, unhurried. Daniel Cross stepped into the dim light, hands at his sides, eyes calm. There was no weapon, no armor, just him. And yet, the air around him felt wrong, like reality itself bent to his will. "You've taken my ship," Vorsk growled, tightening his grip on the rifle. "You think that means you've won?" Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Your ship?" The bridge lights dimmed. The control panels flickered again, this time displaying something new. Security footage. Hallways, empty rooms, the bodies of Krell warriors sprawled across the floors. Some still twitched, their hands clawing at invisible terrors. Others were silent, motionless. But what made Vorsk's blood run cold was what he didn't see. Himself. The footage showed the bridge, the console, the locked doors. But Vorsk was not there. He stared at the screen, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "No." Daniel took another step forward. "You're still trying to fight a battle that ended the moment you brought me aboard." Vorsk's claws trembled. "What did you do?" The whispering grew louder. Daniel's voice was quiet, almost sympathetic. "Your mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was thinking you could control something you didn't understand." The ship shuddered. The walls seemed to stretch and breathe. Vorsk staggered back, his vision blurring. The whispering was no longer just in the air. It was inside him. His memories, flashed before his eyes. Battles he had fought. Victories he had won. But now they twisted, rewritten. He saw himself retreating, failing, running from shadows that didn't exist. Or maybe they did. Daniel took one last step, now standing inches away. He looked into Vorsk's eyes, calm and steady. "You never had a chance." The whispering reached a deafening roar. Vorsk gasped. His rifle slipped from his hands. And then, nothing. The ship was silent. The bridge was empty. Daniel Cross stood alone, watching as the last trace of General Vorsk faded into nothing. He exhaled slowly, turning toward the console. The ship was his now. The Krell had fallen, not to fire, not to war, but to something far worse. Something they never even saw coming. The warship drifted through the void, silent and lifeless. No alarms, no movement, no sign of the Krell warriors who had once commanded it. Daniel Cross stood alone on the bridge, his reflection faint in the darkened screens. The ship was his now, not through brute force, not through weapons or war, through something far greater. He reached for the console, his fingers gliding over the controls. The system resisted for a moment, its security protocols still in place. Then, with a flicker, it gave in. The ship recognized its new master. He exhaled slowly. It was over. Or so he thought. A sharp noise echoed through the empty halls. A footstep. Daniel didn't turn. He had already sensed it. A presence. Something that shouldn't be there. The whispering had stopped. The air was still. Too still. And then, impressive. The voice was deep, familiar. Daniel turned, his expression unreadable. General Vorsk stood at the far end of the bridge. But it wasn't him, not really. His body was there, yes, the same armor, the same stance, the same piercing gaze. But his eyes, they were wrong. Dark, empty. Something else, looked out from behind them. Daniel remained still. "You should be gone." Vorsk's lips curled into something like a grin. "I should be, but you pushed too far, human. You dug too deep." And now, he took a slow step forward. "I see you too." Daniel's heartbeat remained steady. He had shattered the minds of the strongest Krell warriors, erased them from existence with nothing but thought. But this was different. He had expected Vorsk to fall like the others, to vanish into the void, lost in the collapse of his own mind. But something had remained. Something had survived. Daniel's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "You're not Vorsk anymore." The figure tilted its head. "No, not entirely." The ship shuddered. The walls groaned as if something immense was pressing against them from the outside, or the inside. Daniel's fingers curled at his sides. His weapon had always been his mind, his ability to reach into others, to bend their reality until they shattered. But now, for the first time, he wasn't sure what he was facing. Vorsk, or whatever had taken his place, watched him, not with fear, not with anger, with understanding. You thought you were the only one, it murmured. You believed your mind was the most powerful force in the universe. The lights flickered, shadows stretched unnaturally. You were wrong. Daniel inhaled slowly, his stance unwavering. Let's find out. The bridge darkened, and the real battle began. The ship trembled as if reality itself was unraveling. The bridge lights dimmed to a dull glow, casting long, shifting shadows. Daniel Cross stood still, his expression unreadable, his breathing steady. Across from him, the thing wearing General Vorsk's body watched with cold amusement. Its eyes, black voids filled with something ancient, something did not blink. You pushed too far, the voice murmured, distorted now, laid with something deeper. You reached into the mind of a warrior and found something greater than yourself. Daniel didn't react. He had spent years honing his abilities, perfecting his control over the minds of others. He had shattered the Krell with a thought. But now, standing here, facing he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not doubt, curiosity. I didn't find you, Daniel said calmly. You were waiting. The thing inside Vorsk's body chuckled. The sound was wrong, too deep, too vast, as if spoken by something much larger than the body it wore. You were supposed to break me, it said, stepping forward. The shadows twisted around it. Instead, you opened the door. The ship groaned. The walls flexed like they were breathing. The air itself felt thicker, pressing against Daniel's skin, against his thoughts. He felt it trying to push inside. For the first time, he was the one being invaded. Daniel closed his eyes, shutting out the physical world, reaching into the space between minds. He felt the presence pressing against him, its consciousness vast and alien. It wasn't just Vorsk. It was something older, something that had been buried deep within the Krell, hidden beneath centuries of war and conquest. It had never been meant to wake, and now it had. Tell me, human, the thing whispered, stepping closer. What happens when a weapon turns on its wielder? The shadows surged toward Daniel, the weight of 1,000 minds crashing against his own. For a single moment, the universe went silent. Then, Daniel's eyes snapped open. His mind pushed back. The shadows recoiled. The presence shuddered. The bridge lights flared as if reality itself had been reset. Vorsk's body staggered. The thing inside it snarled. You can't. You made the same mistake they did, Daniel said, his voice quiet, steady. You thought I was fighting you. The presence writhed, lashing out again. But now, Daniel understood. It wasn't a battle of strength. It never had been. It was about control. About who truly commanded the mind And Daniel had spent his entire life proving one thing. No one controlled him. The thing in Vorsk's body let out a guttural roar as Daniel reached into it, past its defenses, past its illusions, down to the raw, pulsing core of what it was. And he crushed it. Vorsk's body convulsed. His eyes flickered. The presence screamed without sound. And then it was going. The ship steadied. The air returned to normal. The shadows receded. Vorsk's lifeless body crumpled to the floor. Silence. Daniel exhaled. He was alone again. The Krell were gone. The thing that had hidden inside them was gone. And yet, as he stared down at Vorsk's fallen form, he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. He had opened a door, and something had looked back.